edition of Cheers to Careers. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, the Career Outreach Coordinator at the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at KU.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cheers to Careers. I am Steve Ridinghouse, the Career and Outreach Coordinator for the Journalism School of Mass Communications. Today we're joined by Sarah Grafton with Insight Global, a talent acquisition specialist. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. This is super cool.
And I assume you're in Chicago?
I am, yeah. So we actually have some sunshine today for March. That's really good. But yeah, I'm in Chicago now.
How's the transition to Chicago been going? I think you started your career out in Kansas City. You've been in Chicago for a few years. How's life in Chicago?
Oh, it's so good. I mean, it's funny. I actually always thought I would be in Chicago a lot sooner than I was, or a bigger city of some kind, because I'm from Kansas City, grew up there, went to school in Kansas. And like right after graduation, I was like, yeah, send me to a big city to a coast. But then I realized realistically, I should start closer to home, save some money, pay off the loans, that kind of thing. And then I fell in love with Kansas City more than I thought. So I stayed there a little bit longer than anticipated. I ended up there for like 5 years after graduation. And then I was like, okay, I gotta make the move at some point. So I up and moved to Chicago back in 2019, I think it was. But I think it helps that, there's a huge KU population here. There's a lot of these like major Midwest cities that kind of all gravitate to Chicago. So I've always got someone to watch a game with. I've always got a bar or something I can go find people at. But yeah, it's been awesome making the move. I really have enjoyed it a lot.
And I know you and Insight Global have been great about attending our career fairs. We just had our journalism one last Thursday.
Yeah.
So how do you describe Insight Global when you're trying to pitch the company to a prospective student?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like this is an industry that most people are not familiar with at all until you're in it. It was brand new to me, and I honestly only took a look at it because one of my friends was interviewing, if I'm being totally transparent. But really what we do, so we're a talent solutions firm. And basically what that means is that we sell a couple different services on the people side of business. So that's why I love going to the journalism fair, because especially that strategic communications route, I mean, those are people through and through, great communicators. But our main service is staffing and recruiting for larger corporations. And I look at that as sort of like matchmaking for the business world. That's the easiest way to think about it. We play this middleman kind of communicator role between Fortune 1000 and Fortune 500 companies, and then people who are out there in the job market, the talent that we're trying to place at those companies. So a lot of times we take on this kind of translator role. It's strategic, it's selling, but it's not just like making phone calls and filling orders. There's a little bit more finesse that goes into it. Like you have to actually understand what your client's culture is like and their projects and what their teams are doing, and making sure that you're finding out all those little nuanced things that come, down to, is this really a great fit for this person? And so that's really what we're doing, is we're communicating, we're connecting people to other people. And I've loved it. It's such a fun social job for someone who's outgoing and loves to talk and loves to, build relationships. It's ideal for that kind of background.
And Sarah, do you have any idea how many Jayhawks are working with Insight Global? Is there any
way gosh, the actual number, I'm not sure. I can totally go look it up and send to you. Oh. We have KU grads in all of our offices: Seattle, New York, Dallas, Chicago, Kansas City, of course. We've even got a couple in our Omaha office, which is newer. And we're having someone actually, she graduated a few years ago. She's going to help open our Pensacola, Florida office. She was in our Kansas City office. So yeah, we've got Jayhawks all over the place. I'll go pull the numbers for you and I'll send it to you when we get off of this.
Because you have like over 60 offices throughout North America?
Wow. 66 total officially now. And then we are planning to open usually around 4 or 5 new offices every year. If you saw that pamphlet from the career fair last week, like it's got all of our locations in there and then kind of our upcoming targeted offices. But what's even cooler that I am super stoked about is we're officially global, and we're finally living up to our name. We've been the fastest growing firm in our industry since 2001 when we opened, but we were primarily just in the US. And then we kind of branched into Canada. And then now, as of last year, we branched into Europe. We're officially out in the UK. We opened a London office. And then we're going to do like a Netherlands office and a Germany office. And we're going to keep expanding internationally, which I'm really excited about.
And speaking of your Insight Global promotional material, I noticed when I was glancing through it, I think Forbes this past year called you like the best professional recruiting firm, and also like one of the best places to work for women. I mean, That's got to be a great place to work.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved it. It's funny. So we started our Women's Leadership Council, I think it was back in like 2016. And it was because honestly, we were still a really young company and we hire a lot of entry-level grads. And then as all of these entry-level grads grow up and get promoted in the company, we were realizing we need to totally revamp our benefits. We need to make this a safer space for people who want to start families and, still have a career as like a badass businesswoman, but have kids too. And so we started the Women's Leadership Council just to tackle like women's issues, add more support for the company. But it's not just for women in our company either. Like we've really used this a lot for like just open conversations about mental health, anxiety, things like that in the workplace. So the men are all invited to that too. We do fundraisers. We do a lot of just philanthropic work with like communities and like donating clothes to women in need and things like that so they can get professional jobs. But overall, we've tackled all kinds of issues from maternity leave to like what to do about a creepy client, just random things that are going to come up being a woman in corporate America. And so it's been so cool to see now just how many women in leadership we have and just what all they can accomplish and finding kind of their new 100% when you're trying to juggle 10 million things and family and all kinds of stuff. And it's been so, so successful. So I'm loving seeing those stats and those awards come out because obviously I'm a woman in this company, but I just want people to know it's not just to support women in our business, it's also for the men as well.
And talk about the roles you've had with Insight Global, because I think you started out as a recruiter, then account manager, and then to your current role as talent acquisition specialist. Was that by design, or did management say, hey, Sarah, are you ready for a new challenge? Or were you always
it was a little bit of both. So everyone in the company, no matter what, starts as a recruiter. Like even our CEO started as a recruiter pretty much right out of college. He was like fresh out of Auburn. And so I started there. I recruited in Kansas City for about 8 months, and then I transitioned and got my promotion to account management. And then I sold in Kansas City for about 2 years. And I loved selling. It was super fun for me. But we started having those conversations of like, hey, our company's growing really quick. We have all of these leadership roles available. Is anything calling to you? And like my favorite thing about being an account manager was when I got to like go back to the office and check on my team and like make sure my recruiters were happy and that they were transitioning well from college to the real world. And so one of my sales managers actually was like, have you ever considered the talent acquisition team? I think you would just thrive there because it's kind of a combination of both selling and recruiting. And I get to talk about my favorite thing, which is how much I love this company. So it was like a perfect like aha moment for me where I was like, yep, I'm gonna put my name in the hat for that. Interviewed and was promoted to this team. I think it was back in like 2017. And then I've had a couple different roles now in the talent acquisition org, but I always love going back to the fairs and getting to go to KU and stuff since that's my alma mater. But yeah, now I hire internally for the company. Absolutely love it. This organization has a whole, like it's our talent strategy side of the business rather than just like your typical sales or the recruiting end. So there's like everything roped into this org, hiring and like PR and branding and just all kinds of marketing stuff and making sure like training, like our IGU is really run through talent strategy. So there's tons of options in this track as well.
So when you do come to career fairs, you kind of touched on the one at the journalism school where strategic communications catch your attention. I mean, what are you looking for, like for those entry-level positions? I mean, the verbal communication, the oral communication, I mean, what jumps out to you?
It is primarily soft skills, I'll be honest. So we cast a pretty wide net because this job itself is super relational and very much about, again, connecting people to other people. So I have to get in front of you and have a conversation at the end of the day. There's not like one specific resume background major that I am targeting. I definitely am drawn a little bit more towards like the people focused industries, like a stratcom or marketing or sales or something like that. But I've hired like biochem majors, I've hired engineers because when we had a conversation, we were just like connected and sparking and everyone was like energized. And so that's really something I look for is that ability to drive a conversation, get a client to fall in love with you, want to see you again, because that's what gets your foot in the door. At the end of the day, like it's the same talent that's really out there in the job market. And why our clients choose us is because they love, the relationships they've built and the people they get to work with. And I think we take a very smart approach of having face-to-face relationships. So you can see all those little nuances like their team environment and what is their office setup and things like that. But that's why I need someone who's definitely like not shy, is going to put themselves out there, is going to feel comfortable going into a office of a C-level executive and like owning the room and picking their brain and asking lots of questions. So it really is soft skills. But then the other side of it is your work ethic, like it is sales at the end of the day, and sales is not the easiest industry. It can be a grind sometimes, it can be a hustle. So once you get your foot in the door, you got to close the deal. And so I want to make sure I'm hiring someone who's going to go for it, who's super motivated, super driven to find success. And we'll teach you this industry. We know it's new to pretty much everybody, but I need somebody with that like tenacity and gumption and work ethic to really get it done too.
So Sarah, when you were a KU student, what was your career plan? I mean, were you thinking sales, recruitment? I mean, did you have a plan?
Honestly, not at all, which is really funny to me now. I was kind of like averse to sales, if I'm being totally, totally honest. I grew up in a household where like the phone would ring and my parents would be like, don't answer, it's a sales call. You know, like it was just this attitude about sales that was like, oh, they're just trying to push something on you that you don't need and they're trying to rip you off or whatever. And so I had this idea in my head about sales that it was like sleazy, which is so funny now because I feel like it's my calling in a lot of ways. And I did a lot of jobs that were like incentive based, tip based, like serving and bartending. I grew up with 3 brothers playing sports, like we're a super competitive household. And those things like just scream sales, but I was kind of just like, no, I don't know if that's what I want to do. So I was a communication student and I was told I can talk to a brick wall. So I was like, oh, I'll do something with people. I'll do PR, I'll do marketing, I'll do something along those lines. And I just wasn't really finding something that I felt great about, you know. I was either having to like sacrifice a growth opportunity for a great culture, or, you know, there wasn't going to be a great financial opportunity or whatever. And so one of my friends was interviewing with Insight Global, and he was actually an accounting major, which was kind of random. And he was like, Sarah, you should talk to these people. Like, I feel like this is right up your alley. Had a conversation, fell in love. Like the more I was learning about Insight Global, the more I was like, okay, it's sales, but I get to sell something I actually feel good about. And I can actually see a lot of value in this. And one thing that I just absolutely loved about it was how much of a win-win it was. Like there was the commission and that exciting like incentive, but I was getting commission because someone else is also earning a paycheck. You know, I'm helping someone find a job and put food on the table and that kind of thing. And so it was just this weird aha connection that I was like, this is what I want to sell. This is going to get me out of bed in the morning. This is something I feel good about. And that's how they got me, honestly. And now almost 9 years later, I still love it just as much.
While you were a KU student, did you have time to be involved in any campus activities, or were you pretty much student, part-time job? Or...
Yeah, I mean, I worked a ton, so I wasn't involved like in as much as I probably wanted to be or should have been. I was in a sorority on campus, and I did a lot of philanthropy things with that. I did like Rock Chalk Review and, you know, all of that stuff. I did the big events, and I did a lot with Children's Miracle Network and those events. But primarily I was working. I mean, I paid for my own school. And so I was like trying to pay my loans while I was still in it. And also like sororities aren't the cheapest thing either. And there's a t-shirt for everything you have to buy. And so I was like bartending most weekends. I was serving as much as I could during the week and just like serving food and stuff like that. And then I would actually go home a lot to Kansas City on like Sundays and breaks, and I would do catering and work for a couple of restaurants that I worked with back there. So I was spread pretty thin with also just being a student, but I don't regret that at all. And that's something that I always tell students too when they're interviewing is like, I felt a little like imposter syndrome coming into the real world because I was like, what do I know about corporate America? Like, I don't even know, like, really if I'm sending emails right. I'm a bartender at heart. And so it was really nice to know that that was a skill that was valued, at least at Insight Global, because I can talk to just about anybody at this point. I've dealt with cranky customers, fast-paced environments. I've had to think on my feet, be resourceful. Like, there is so much good you can learn from your customer service jobs. And I just want students to know that that's super valuable and should be highlighted in your interviews. So don't feel like if you didn't have the perfect internship or you haven't worked in an office before, that doesn't mean you're qualified for something, because that is like, actually, when I talked to my interviewers at Insight Global, they were like, that really stood out to me. You grinded, you worked your butt off. Like, we love that about you. So I definitely, just for any students listening, that's something you should really be proud of and mention.
And my last question was going to be like, we're about 2 months away from commencement. What advice would you have for soon-to-be graduates? I guess you kind of touched on it just right there about the soft skills.
Yeah.
And work ethic.
I mean, definitely highlight that stuff. At the end of the day, any interviewer you're talking to is also a human being. And my favorite interviews are the ones where I'm like, okay, this kid just brightened my day. Like, I had a really good combo with them. They, you know, were inquisitive. They cared about me just as much as I'm trying to ask questions about them. Like, nobody likes to be grilled and nobody wants to be doing the grilling. So just know everyone you're talking to is a human being. But I think my biggest advice, and the thing that I wish I knew the most just when making my transition and kind of getting into the real world and trying to earn, you know, that first promotion and make a splash, is just go for it. You know, having a growth mindset is going to get you a lot further than being so afraid of making a mistake. When you're new and you're entry level, that's a safe space to make your mistakes. That's the time to kind of try things on and figure out if it's right for you or not, or fail at something and get your feedback. And then you're that much closer to doing it the right way and finding success there. So don't get so in your head and have that like analysis paralysis, like frozen moment. You got to just get out there and try things sometimes. That's the best way to learn. And I know at least in our company, that's like one of the biggest pieces of advice I give every new recruiter is like, ask for responsibility, go try something and totally mess it up. And that is okay because it's going to get you that much closer to your goals. So I think that's my biggest advice for graduating seniors right now is just have a go for it attitude, have a growth mindset, and learn as much as you can.
No, great advice, Sarah.
Yeah.
Hey, again, I appreciate you taking the time to join us virtually from Chicago.
Of course.
I've got to know you through career fairs, and hey, I just want to say cheers to your careers.
Hey, cheers to careers. Yes, I do.
And we hope to see you again on campus soon.
Thanks, Steve. It was really good talking to you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sarah.
Cheers.